Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. We got a barn burner of a show for you guys today. We're going to be joined in just a few short minutes by NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle standout Cory Reed, who announced a few weeks ago his planned transition to pro stock competition. Very exciting. I'm anxious to hear from him and what he looks to achieve when he makes his debut out west here in a couple of weeks, I believe in Seattle at the NHRA National event. We will then be joined by the dynamic duo that is Scott Palmer, the People's Champ, and Alex Laughlin. I'll drive anything, Alex Laughlin, who will be competing in a Top Fuel match race this weekend at Tyler Crossnow and the Franklin family's grand production, the Pro Stars event, the PDRA Pro Stars event, taking place this weekend at Virginia Motorsports Park. Excited to talk to these guys, dive into all three things drag racing, but we have had really a barn burner of a 2024. This is something that I think is important to just identify here kind of off the jump. Is I hope everybody that watches this show and is a part of this community right now recognizes this incredible time that we're living in. While we have had some really tough moments in the last couple of weeks, I can't help but find some solace in the fact that the outpouring of support for John Force, for the family of Lizzie Musey, family and friends of Lizzie Musey, the family and friends of Roger Richards, a lot of the things, Bill Janke, William Janke, a top sportsman racer that lost his life this past weekend at Empire Dragway. Or actually, I don't know if that's right. Is it Empire Dragway? Anyways, I'm rambling. My point is that amidst all this tragedy, I really think the silver lining is the massive amount of support that has been shown on social media, in person at various events with tributes. And to me, I can't help but feel like that is an example of how much people care and how invested people are in the men and women that strap themselves into these hot rods. And I think that's something that we should take pride in. It's something that we should be excited about, despite all the sadness that exists around these happenings, which is unavoidable. Right? When bad things happen, of course, it's a sad moment. But I can't help, maybe it's just the eternal optimist in me that can't help but find some positive in it. That look at how many people care about this sport. Look at how many people, even the clickbait types, even the people that are out here clearly seeking traffic, at least we got their attention. The sport of drag racing, be it through a tragedy, be it through something fantastic, a record-setting run, what have you, I can't help but find some, again, positivity, a silver lining, if you will, amidst all the outpouring of support and just the sheer numbers. I got to tell you guys, I'm typically not one to brag about our numbers, but I can promise you there's not another website in drag racing that's getting the kind of traffic that dragillustrated.com is getting right now. And I mean, when I see 500,000 people visit the site in 24 hours on the heels of Lizzie Musey's passing, when I see 430,000 people visit dragillustrated.com in the 24 hours following John Force's crash in Virginia, when I see the reach that we're able to achieve organically on social media, it tells me that there's a lot of people that care about the sport of drag racing. And more importantly, perhaps most importantly, they care about the people. And that is 100% our pathway to the future, is developing stars and sharing these men and women's stories with the masses and getting a hook in folks. Because I promise you, fast cars, side-by-side competition, header flames, hellfire and brimstone, those items will unequivocally bring people to the racetrack. But what will bring them back time and time and time again, and for years to come, is getting them emotionally invested in one of the men or women that are strapping into these race cars. And I think that the more we can tell these stories, the more we can talk about the people that make this sport great, the further we're going to go. Guys, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-host here on the show today, Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson. What's up, boys? We got a lot of ground to cover in a relatively short
two barn burners in like 30 seconds there.
Yeah, back-to-back barn burners.
Gyros today.
Listen, a double barn burner, rare, sure, but not impossible. A double barn burner, it's something that it can happen. It can happen. I don't want you to act like it can't happen. It can happen right here today.
Don't cry wolf. Now we gotta live up to it.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think we're going to. I want to preface today's show by saying all three of our guests are in sketchy locales. And I'm not saying like Ukraine. I'm saying like sounds like Scott Palmer's behind the wheel of a big rig somewhere on the East Coast headed to VMP.
In West Virginia, which from experience, just turn your phone off when you're in West Virginia. Just turn it off. It just focus, look at the scenery, focus on your driving, going up and down the mountains, but your phone's not going to work.
Semis. Prepare yourself to lose a front tire that it sounds like happened to the Palmer Racing Camp. Scott, I don't know where Alex Laughlin is, but he did forewarn me that he is not at his podcast studio at his home, so he's out of pocket. And Corey Reed, by all accounts, may be boating. So I just want to kind of preface that today that we're gonna get through this, come hell or high water. We're gonna get through it together, but it should be interesting, guys. It's been. Let's just start with the what has seemingly been the talk of town for weeks now since his unfortunate accident at the NHRA Virginia Nationals at VMP, Virginia Motorsports Park, just outside Richmond. John Force on the road to recovery. I want to tell you guys that I had an offline conversation with a dear friend of mine that's a doctor. He's a psychiatrist. He's been in practice for 40 years. He shared some information with me that the timeline for recovering from these types of things. And I got to ask you guys, I mean, I think, what I do wonder if that there's an opportunity here to really kind of start thinking about what the next phase of all of this looks like, right? I've had multiple conversations is like, how long do you think it is before John's back in a car? And I understand that none of us want to, speculate too terribly here, but I do, pose this question. Mike, I'll start with you. I mean, what do you think like the dialogue is at NHRA right now internally as they kind of, I mean, at the bare minimum, we knew that John Force was racing on borrowed time, right? The man's 75 years old. We have, kind of anticipated a retirement tour. We had heard earlier this year, John making some of his first public remarks about potentially retiring. I think we can all think back on that really iconic top-end moment between John Force and Austin Prock, where he handed Austin the trophy, that little gold man, and it kind of felt like a passing of the torch. To me, I get chills just thinking about the significance of that moment, especially as we look back on what's happened the last few weeks. But I'm just curious, like, do you think the entire sport of drag racing and those that are, invested, especially at our sports pro levels, probably have needed to be thinking about, the sport post John Force as an active driver for years now?
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, do you think that I mean, what does that look like to you? Do you think those conversations are happening, or do you think
it's probably, snuck up on them all of a sudden? I mean, we've been talking about it for years that we as a whole, not just in HRA, but just all of us kind of need to start doing the work to find the next John Force. And I think we have started to maybe turn that corner. Maybe it's Austin Prock. Maybe John has seen that in Austin Prock and why he felt comfortable making that statement at the top end. And I do think that it is ironic that just weeks after we see hear the first time John Force even mention retirement, or that the end being near at some point, that this happens. And it's, you just never know. You never know what the next day is going to bring. I think that John Force Racing, John himself, NHRA, everyone would love to plan out this grand retirement tour or wind this thing down on his own terms, but he may not get that opportunity. And if that is the case, then it's, to me, these guys, I talked about like my own experience with my dad, and I think of racers like Ricky Smith, or just guys that have been doing this forever. And it's more times than not, sadly, it takes something like this to get those guys out of the car, because they will go down in a ball of flames in that car, and nothing can get them out. Nothing, because as soon as John started mentioning retirement, he started backtracking. I don't know what got into me. I don't know why I said that. and he immediately started going back. How many times have we seen Ricky Smith retire and it just show up to the next race, right? I mean, it's so hard for these guys. We think about the Tom Brady's, Brett Favre's, a lot of these guys that are great at what they do and really have built their whole lives around it. No other way, don't know anything else to do. And it, unfortunately, things like this happen that sort of force your hand. So I think it is going to be, accelerating the timetable of however this was going to look for John Force. We're all hopeful that everything can get 100% back to normal, but if it can't, this is going to kind of serve as a reminder that we always have to be on the look for the next superstar, and that what these guys do out there is dangerous. We've taken so much of the drama and I don't want to say excitement, but this kind of stuff happened all the time in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and further back. But as safety has gotten so good, it's almost jarring when something like this happens. And they're already hard at work to make sure it doesn't happen again, thankfully. But it takes something like this, of this magnitude, for big safety changes to be implemented. So to me, it's a double-edged sword. I think we have to focus on the positive and focus on where we go from here and how to make it the most positive and carry forward. But again, I don't want to speculate. We have no inside knowledge. We have no knowledge of what's going on with John, and that it's a personal family matter. And I think that is what matters the most. But this is such a tight knit community that we all feel like family with John at this point. So
I think that's a fantastic segue for really where I wanted this conversation to head next, Mike. Was really, I've labored over this, and there's kind of two distinct pathways that I want to take here. But I guess first, let's address, for those that don't know, yesterday on Joe Costello's WFO radio program, NHRA announcer Alan Reinhart was on the show, and a part of the conversation was the recounting of a conversation that Alan Reinhart had with NHRA Technical Director Lonnie Grimm, kind of going over what happened and in addressing some of the curiosity, some of the questions surrounding why the parachutes on John Force's Nitro Funny Car failed to deploy upon the explosion of the engine, which is how the electromotion, the Leahy device, is designed to function, that it can sense failure, I believe Alan Reinhart said, in one of three ways: and an engine explosion, a massive spike in pan vac pressure, etc. But for whatever reason, which it sounds like they have gotten to the bottom of, and I would like to preface this by saying that I've used the word preface 3 times today now. I would like to start by saying that this is not an official statement from the NHRA. We have reached out. Our director of digital content, Kayla Zadell, has been in fairly constant communication with the NHRA, looking to get to the bottom of this. She is something of our in-house investigative journalist and has really taken this taking the bull by the horns here to try to get to the bottom of this, because I do think while we have got now some relative explanation as to what exactly happened, and I'll catch you guys up briefly, that the system is a fairly simply functioning system. The air cylinder is mounted in the car, and there's a wire that runs from it to the parachute handle to pull it. When the air cylinder is triggered, it pulls it back, opens the chute, pulls it, and then drops the parachutes. For whatever reason, whenever the concussion, the explosion of the engine somehow compromised the area between that air cylinder and the parachute release. So it's something that they're going to work to improve. It's a problem that they have never encountered before. But I really want to talk about kind of just what our expectations are, because it really, I have no issue, Mike, with the explanation. I am anxiously awaiting an official report or an official statement from NHRA, because I think it's due. I'm not saying it's overdue, but I do think an official statement beyond the announcement of the crash and his transportation to a medical facility, I do think that our sport is far enough along that in the times that we live in, of seemingly hyper transparency, a tremendous amount of information being thrown at us at any given time, I do think that it is time to hear something, and I'm anxious to see how that unfolds.
I think they're working on it. I really do, giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I think we've had some informal communication with some contacts there that they are still like in the process of figuring it out and gathering like an official statement. And I don't know that I think what Alan was talking about, I think maybe was a little more informal, or maybe a little more, I guess behind the scenes, or maybe not unauthorized, but unofficial. Maybe just some of his internal conversations he's had through some of his connections. But I think, before we get on to that about the statement, just from a technical standpoint, I think a lot of people here are technically minded and would like this discussion. So are we basically saying that the cylinder is mounted somewhere in close proximity to the chute release, and somewhere in inside the car, and that somewhere between that distance the car was compromised and kind of severed that connection?
That's my understanding. That there's actually a comment here from Dave Miller, and he says because it's mounted on the roof of the body instead of mounted on the chassis like a top fuel car, which to me, like just from a 30,000 foot view and piecing it together, that checks out, and I guess for me,
well, there's also, sorry to interrupt, but and from what I understand, and again, I don't know a ton about this system and about how it functions, it almost seems like this rule is open for interpretation and different implementation by different teams, and that it's not like a hard and fast, this has to be here, this has to be here, this has to be a certain distance. I think that if it's all within, I don't know, spec, tolerance, whatever, and it's approved by NHRA, I'm sure they inspect it and say, yeah, that'll work, that meets the standards. But I think each team has a different approach to it. And I think that each driver has a different approach to the location of the chute handles, the system that they use, where it's mounted. I think some probably use a wheel mount or lower mounted, some are on the roof, whatever. And maybe maybe someone in the comments can educate us more, or more about it yourself, Wes. But it seems like between all these different variables, that's kind of where this issue was created. That maybe there needs to be less interpretation, less option as far as where you place these things, so that it prevents this failure. And if that's what we learn from this, and that's the good that comes of it, then I think that that's great. But I think up until now that these safety things kind of haven't been implemented by different teams in different cars for different reasons, in not a non-standard way, but each car has a little bit of variance to it. And maybe that was the situation here.
Well, from our sources indicate that there are teams that are already making changes, which I think is very telling, which, actually tells me everything I need to know, that if teams are saying, okay, we've identified a potential pitfall or an issue that could exist with this system, and changes are being made. I'm told there are at least a few teams that are headed to the next stop on the NHRA tour with some changes made to their setup. So it's an interesting thing to me, but what it really brings to light, in my opinion, do you sense, like I sense, and I'm not trying to call anyone out here, but I guess it's the internet, and that's perhaps one of the things it's for. I do take some sort of issue, I guess, Mike, with the way some of these things are being communicated. It feels like there's a real tension about this, right? And some of it, like if you're a hyper passionate race fan or whatever, like you take these things seriously. And if you're involved in the sport professionally, of course you take these things seriously. But I sense a lot of, there's like a lot of back and forth. Like I go back to my opening statements about the outpouring of support we've seen in the heels of these tragedies. But what I've also seen is a real genuine interest and a real genuine curiosity amongst the racing community as to what happened. And I think that there's like there's hyper
focus on it.
Yes.
Because of the stakes of it. It's our biggest superstar with a, life-threatening accident. And I think that all of a sudden it creates intense scrutiny, and then it also makes NHRA slow down and try to really get a handle on this. So then all of a sudden, my question
to you, though, you're right. And so in the midst of this hyper curiosity that exists, this laser focus on this singular instance, to me, I'm an opportunist, right? And I go, can you not extrapolate like something positive from the fact that all these people care so deeply? I mean, you don't have to spend 5 minutes on social media right now to see multiple curious posts, questions, people wanting to know what happened. And I guess for me, what I'm sensing, like what I sensed in the delivery of that information from Alan Reinhart and from Joe Costello, and like I said, I'm not trying to like call them out. Like I love those guys, I'm happy for them. And I love the amount, we need more people reporting on the sport of drag racing. So this is a fantastic thing, but it does smack a little of like state-run media, where you have these two people that are, employed by the NHRA that are out here kind of like on the defensive or you know what I mean? It feels like the way this is being presented is kind of like snarky almost. And it's like, guys, I don't think it's bad that our fans want to know what happened. I actually think that it's a missed opportunity. I see this and I see all these people asking questions and wanting to know and saying what they think happened. The pins were left in, this happened, that happened. I understand that a certain amount of like wild, insane speculation is bad, but like there's clearly thousands of people that want to know what happened. Don't you see that as an opportunity to provide that information, to provide some transparency to fans
and create a spotlight on tech and safety and those aspects of our sport and what the safety safari does and what Lonnie Grimm does and their roles and their jobs. Like we kind of don't hear a lot about that and enough about that. And that's really what came of Earnhardt. I think that there's a stat, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there has not been a fatality in at least Cup racing, maybe all of the forms of NASCAR racing as far as Xfinity and truck since Dale Earnhardt, that he was the last fatal accident in NASCAR racing. But and I attribute a large portion of that to the fact that we lost the biggest star in racing and certainly in NASCAR racing at that time due to doing an accident, a preventable accident that now we have so many safety measures in place to prevent that kind of thing. And I just hope that that's the case, that with John Force, that it shines a light on this, it shines and it creates more standardization, more checks on this stuff so that we don't go through it again. And I also think that you have to we're at a point now where John is, he's alive. We see him eating ice cream, taking a stroll on the sidewalk, or in a wheelchair with his family, with Brittany Force for her birthday. We're starting to see some more positive news. So now that we're kind of past that segment of this, now it's time to kind of start looking at what happened and see start to hear the facts and the information, because it is a little bit, it seemed maybe like insensitive to just focus on that while you're still so concerned about John. So now maybe we take a little bit more focus off that, let his family have some privacy, let him continue to recover, and let's focus on what happened here on track. Let's talk about it. And let's not be afraid to admit these are men and women strapping into 10,000, whatever, 12,000 horsepower bombs. In the case of a funny car, they're literally sitting behind it with the whole drive line running underneath their body, with a fiberglass body sitting over top of it. And, this stuff's going to happen. And I guess we need to be okay with that. Like this.
I agree. There's an inherent danger to our sport.
Yep.
There's an inherent danger into many sports, bull riding. I mean, it's dangerous.
And you can't remove that danger. I mean, I hate to say it, but man, that is part of any of these. Drag racing is an extreme sport to me. And that's part of extreme sport.
I would argue that it's the original extreme sport.
Every time you strapped your dad in his car, and every time I strapped my dad in mine, pulled that belt tight, I thought, hey, this you have to be okay, that could be the last time. And I told myself that every single run. I don't know if anybody else thinks that or goes through that, but I had to be okay with this. This is what we do, and this could be the last time. And if you're not okay with it, say something, stop, leave, quit, do something different. Or at least for myself, I had to kind of tell myself that.
I guess what I see is almost beyond the John Force thing. I don't like to see people in positions of power or authority being mad at fans for being fans. It seems like there's some like disdain, like, oh, how dare you fans speculate? How dare you fans try to piece together what happened? What do you expect fans to do? That's like the definition of it. Like if I go to a Dallas Mavericks game and come home after a loss, the whole way home, my son and I are picking it apart. Like, oh, they should have called a timeout there in the fourth quarter. They had a chance to win. I mean, that's part of being a fan. And what I feel is kind of happening is like, I feel like my wrist and the collective wrist of the drag racing fan base are being slapped for caring or being curious about what happened.
Drag racing has always had a weird relationship with being a fan versus being a participant. We've talked about this a lot. No one wants to identify as a fan. It's almost like bad or whatever. And then the fans are only allowed to be kept outside the walls.
We're identifying the reason why, because we treat them like shit. And it's like, it's one thing to ask them to sit in the hot sun, buy an expensive ticket, sit in the hot sun all day, endure oil downs and all the other catastrophes that drag racing is known to produce. We do all these things, right? And we ask a lot of our fans. We ask them to travel. We ask them to spend multiple days at the event to see it come to conclusion. I mean, we hear all the time comparing drag racing to these other sports that are over in 3 or 4 hours. An NFL game's over in 4 hours. A NASCAR race is over in 4 hours. Drag races take 3 days, right? I mean, we ask a lot of our fans, but we're then also going to ask them on the heels of our sport's biggest star getting injured in a really spectacular accident. We're then going to ask them like, hey, we know we want you to sit out here and buy these tickets and, buy this expensive food and all that. But we also want you to shut up and not ask any questions when things aren't going well. And I think that is a completely unrealistic expectation. And I think it speaks to the situation that, the NHRA and, drag racing perhaps as a whole has found itself in, where the fan base isn't as strong as it needs to be. Like, if we want to grow and if we want to attract Fortune 500 companies and new sponsors, we got to grow the fan base. We got to have racers. Be there, no doubt. We must have racers, but we have to grow our fan base. We have to grow the audience. We need more eyeballs. And if we treat fans like, what if you're a relatively new fan to the sport of drag racing, and then you got hooked earlier this year or what have you, or maybe your first time at the races was Thursday or Friday at VMP for the NHRA Virginia Nationals. John Force signed an autograph for you. You watch him win the Mission Foods Challenge and you're all excited. And now you're a John Force fan. And then he has this tragic incident. And on the heels of that, anytime you post on your social media that you're curious about what happened, or you're speculating about what happened, or you're wondering aloud what happened, you get berated by the elders of our sport for, how dare you? You don't own a funny car. You shouldn't care. You don't drive one of these things. You shouldn't care. I don't think that is not an attitude that is going to allow our sport
looking down. It's looking down on the fan, and it's almost like you have to be a participant. Those 3 and 4 day events is almost like it's built around, well, you're a participant anyway. You're going to be here anyway. So it's okay that we can go 3 or 4 days. It's never been built around that fan, that mainstream fan. And like I said, I mean, I honestly felt that personally early on. It was never cool to be a fan. You had to be involved in some way. I think that's why so many people, it's such a, I don't know what the word is, fraternal sport or whatever, where if you really love drag racing, you better find a way to be involved in it somehow, because that's the only way that you're going to be like accepted.
You're going to earn any street cred, or you're going to earn any, any rep or whatever in the game. You've got to be a racer. And I'm telling you, man, like, there's a great comment here from Drag Race Mayhem. Like, half the fun is speculating. Half the fun is the conversation and what happened and what do you think happened and what do you think they said. That's half the fun. I spend my week seeking that shit out. I call people wanting to know what happened, or, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I don't have I call people all the time, and I don't have a pro mod team, but I'm invested in what happens in pro mod. Right. And I think that we've really got to start changing the mindset and changing the attitude in the way we treat our fans. We have to enrich the fan experience. Like, I don't mean to beat this drum, but I think someone has to. We have to make this being a drag racing fan more attractive. And if the first time something bad happens and you are curious about it, you get your wrist slapped or you get scolded because how dare you be curious about what's going on? How dare you wonder? How dare you question these guys? I think that that's a really, really bad angle to take. I mean, we need to be, in my opinion, this served as something of an opportunity to be transparent with our fans.
For publicity.
They clearly care. Yeah. They clearly care. Like, even John Force would recognize that there is an opportunity that is presented by all the attention that is going to be garnered by this crash, right? Even he recognizes. I mean, I was literally at lunch with my family the other day, and ESPN like showed a report or whatever, like a check-in on John Force's status. And I'm going, that type of thing typically is not happening. So, like, why wouldn't we feed that machine? So ESPN is reporting every time that John Force puts out an update. So if he's
the only person that would get that kind of update.
I'm putting out updates. Like, I'm putting out, discussions continue amidst NHRA technical officials. It doesn't even have to.
John Force Racing social media, I think, actually did a very good job once John stabilized or whatever the situation was. They've done a good job keeping us up to date with those posts every couple of days. The long, image graphics or whatever with the explanation of exactly where he's at. I think that's been good. But yeah, one parallel that I can draw is, as far as leaning into bad news, is UFC 303. So this was supposed to be a huge watershed event for UFC because of the return of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor breaks his freaking toe. There's speculation for weeks leading up to this. What's going to happen with UFC 303? Is McGregor going to fight? And instead of just like shutting it down, no talk about UFC 303, no talk about Conor McGregor, don't speculate. We're having the event. Buy your tickets, buy your pay-per-view. They had to kind of toe the line and balance, but they leaned into that and then tried to spin it positively as far as the replacement match for the headliner of that event once it did confirm that McGregor was not there. But there's bad news every day in all these other sports, and I draw the parallel with UFC just because
but their employees of those other sports aren't engaging in the theories and online and everything else. I mean,
I think some
maybe not
a lot. Not a lot, really.
So what are you saying?
Michael Chandler talked about Conor McGregor pulling out of his
like
fight?
if you worked for the Chiefs or if you worked within the NFL organization and they caught you splattering a bunch of stuff all over the internet, or maybe even defending where you work, I mean, you'd probably be in some deep shit, actually.
Well, there's more of a hierarchy there. There's more of a separation. There's so many more millions and billions of fans of NFL or whatever. And then there's only a certain number of people that work at the UFC or at the Chiefs. But with drag racing, again, there's just such little separation between the fans, the participants, the drivers. It's like we're just kind of all lumped in together.
It is, and everybody kind of knows each other, to be honest.
And everyone knows each other. So even, I think Courtney Enders made a comment earlier, even someone like her who works in multiple facets of the sport, but is concerned about John on a personal level and as a fan of the sport and of drag racing, felt like they couldn't talk about it. And I think that's kind of how we all felt.
Well, I mean, to me, and I think that I actually, real quick, I would like to interject that I am absolutely shocked that I'm hearing Mike Carpenter reference UFC. It's a big moment for me, and I'm excited. But I was at UFC 303. I was at the fight Saturday night. And I think back to that, but throughout in the weeks leading up to UFC 303, constant speculation about what was going on with Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor's their biggest star. He's their John Ford.
They're talking about, there's video footage of Conor partying at some nightclub in Dublin or whatever. And people are wondering, is that recent? Is his haircut the same? It looks like his hair is shorter in this video. In this video, he has a beard.
He was partying.
And that when he
were speculating on how much is he drinking or whatever.
Well, I mean, and to me, that's where the views come from. That's how you entertain your fans. Like, we're putting too much onus on the racing. Like, the racing has to happen. Like, it's almost like we somehow, NHRA has decided that like having the race is the goal. I would argue that the race is the expectation. That is what we owe the fans. That's the deal we've made, that we're going to put on a race. But that's not enough. Like, what keeps these other sports going are all the talking heads and pundits and speculators. I mean, I think about stick and ball sports, specifically NBA, and like the role that Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith play. It would almost seem that ESPN and Fox Sports, respectively, have those people in place just to say shit that will.
They're about to pay Stephen A. Smith $100 million. I just read. They're going to pay him a $100 million.
Mike's our Skip Bayless.
But I mean, listen, though, I mean, I feel like I'm the one who's always saying shit. Like, I'm the one that's going to get the glares next time I go to an NHRA race. But I'm telling you, I've seen 4 people with podcasts, Jason Galvin, whom I love and is a big part of our, has been a part of our events and I likely always will be. Jason Galvin, Jason Logan, Alan Reinhardt and Joe Costello. And I've seen them both produce podcasts in recent weeks that were really, in my opinion, I got off those going like, am I in trouble for caring about what happened? Like, am I in trouble? Like, should I not care what happened in John Force's crash? I feel like I should care. Right. And I do think that, and obviously in those immediate days, I get it. Sensitivity, we didn't know if John was going to be okay. We didn't know. There were a lot of unknowns, and it's obviously a private matter at that point. And I respect these are the hard hitting questions like this right here. This would be a lead on SportsCenter or on First Take. It looked like an off pink, so I'm thinking strawberry. It might have been. I was thinking like a sherbet swirl. Something. It could have been. It could have been. We'll debate. But my point is just that I don't think it's fair to be mad or somehow scold our fan base for wondering what happened. I think it's their job to wonder what happened. I think it's their job to talk amongst themselves,
and
fellow community members on social media about what happened. And I guess what my takeaway from this, because, they say rules are written in blood. And I think that's a very true statement. And I think that it is a foregone conclusion. I have enough belief in the drag racing community that we're absolutely going to better ourselves on the heels of this tragedy, right? We're going to improve the system. I feel like almost every time there's been an incident, right, we've found a way to improve because of it. And I think that's a foregone conclusion. But I do think that our fan base is well within their rights to want to know and be curious, and that should be embraced. I think there's an opportunity for the higher parts of our sport, or the people in positions of authority, to go, you know what? People really care. People really want to know what happens. And I think that we need to feed that. We need to feed our community and like I said, find a way to enrich that fan experience, because this is one of the few sports. Like, I've had hundreds of phone calls and text messages about the John Force situation over the course of the last few weeks. Not one of them was, hey man, we probably shouldn't be talking about this because it's none of our business. Every single one of them were much more like, hey, have you heard anything? Do you know anything? You got any inside information? And I think that I see myself as nothing more than a drag racing fan. And so when I see my other fans, my fellow drag racing fans, finding themselves, being ridiculed or talked down to because they're curious, I think it's a bad look. And I think that there's an opportunity here for us as a sport to go, you know what? These people care. These are the most, and I understand, like, Jim Parks is making a great point in the comments right now. Shout out to Jim. He's one of our regulars. The most annoying speculation through all of this was that the shoot pins were left in. And I definitely think that it is tasteless to be, firing shots and calling people out and trying to identify some sort of shortcoming. However, I don't know that is I'm not surprised by it in any way, shape, or form. I think that's what fans love to do. I know that's what I love to do. And like, again, we love John Force, and we're so glad to see him on the mend. And I'm hoping that if this is something, if this goes like most things with John Force, he will steamroll through this, and we will see him again at the track again soon. And that's certainly my hope. But I do think that it's an interesting conversation that, we could talk to it a little bit with our next couple of guests. We've got two of them in the green room. We've got Scott Palmer coming in soon. Guys, I want to take a quick second here before I introduce our guest and remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about our friends at Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. Tell them Wes and the guys at Drag Illustrated sent you. Guys, we're queued up. The green room is getting popping. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the one, the only Corey Reed, NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle Superstar, who is about to make his transition into Pro Stock Car. I think this is fantastic news. There's a lot of conversation we can have about this, Corey, but I guess first and foremost, thanks for joining us. It looks like you're having more fun than I am.
Oh yeah, man, just chilling on a dock fishing.
Oh yeah, you can't beat that, dude. Where are you, in Mooresville?
Yeah, my dad's house.
Lake Norman, man.
Yes,
beautiful place. I heard you guys had a big weekend with my boy Brett Underwood. You guys spent some time together out at the Underdog Lounge having some cigars and cocktails.
Yeah, my little boy jumping off the dock, swimming it up. It was
you
good.
Can't beat it, man.
Then they all came over this way and actually, scraped the mud coming in, got some rope caught in the propeller and whatnot.
That
was a good time.
Right?
It was always good.
Is boating. They say that's one of those things that you're better off to rent, right? Planes, boats. Yeah, you're better off to rent.
Hey, my dad owns all of them. I do not.
Fair enough, man. Well, hey, I would love to talk to you a little bit about, and thank you for joining us, but what was the catalyst for this move into Pro Stock? I mean, for those that don't know, your family has a big involvement in the KB Titan operation, so I understand there's some synergy there, but was this making the move from 2 wheels to 4 on your radar for a while now? What's your take?
Not at all, man. We were in Gainesville, and my dad just was like, point blank, do you want to race a Pro Stock car? Yeah, that'd be cool. He said, we got a good group of guys. You got a good team. You're about to embark on a thing with the motorcycle of spending a ton of money trying to catch these guys. And it's more realistic to just hop in a car if you're decent enough at it and give it a shot.
So have you dropped the bomb on that thing yet? Have you gotten to make some passes? What was your licensing experience like?
I made a handful of burnouts beforehand, and then my first run I destroyed a transmission. Got a pretty sweet necklace out of it. And then I made 16 runs in 2 days. Got my license.
So you got to, I mean, 16 runs in 2 days. I mean, you were getting after it, bro.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was
I mean, what was your first? I mean, have you ever been in like a fast door car before, or was this like a completely foreign experience?
Junior dragster, motorcycles.
Wow. Junior dragster motorcycles, and now we're in a 500-inch NHRA Pro Stock car, arguably some of the most difficult cars to drive. What do you make of all that's going on? I mean, that's one of the things that I love to talk about. I think Pro Stock sometimes gets slept on as the ultimate drivers category. Like maybe they're not going 300 miles an hour, but these cars are so detail oriented. There's an order of events that has to happen the same way every time. Shifting gears, doing burnouts. I mean, staging the car, backing up from a burnout, all much more complex than it looks on the surface. I mean, what was your initial reaction just to everything that's going on in that thing?
I could barely get in the car. You know, the being strapped in, the Hans device the first time I was all jacked off. I was like looking up. I did not like it. You know, in my opinion, every class is hard, no matter what you're doing. Everything has a process. Everything has their deals, their catches, what catches you off guard. But you're using every part of your body. You know, the burnout's extremely hard for me to get used to. And, you know, you get anxious. You feel like you're going to miss a step. And when you do miss a step, it tells you right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's fun though, man. You know, it takes off, it sets you back, and it's a little more relaxing than the motorcycle because you don't feel like you're gonna fall off the thing. Yeah,
I can imagine.
Cool. Really
why don't you touch on just the kind of state of Pro Stock motorcycle? I mean, you've been a part of that scene for quite a while, as long as I've known you, Corey. I think that was when our paths first crossed at the U.S. Nationals many moons ago. You were there racing Pro Stock bike. But it is an interesting world we live in when it comes to motorcycle racing in 2024. We've got Gage Herrera seemingly head and shoulders above the competition. What's your take on that? I mean, your dad probably makes a solid point that trying to build a team and develop an engine program and everything that would go into competing with a team that has such a distinct advantage at this point in time. And I'm not firing shots. I mean, it's in my opinion, likely well deserved. But is that, I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, do you think that there's something that's going to need to happen in the future for Pro Stock motorcycle to tighten things back up? Or what's your thoughts on the state of the deal right now?
Point blank, there needs to be some factory effort. People need to put the effort in that Vance Knights puts in. Gage Herrera's earned it. He's raced a lot of stuff. He's went through the ranks. He's good. You know, he deserves where he's at. Do I agree with the politics, the business ethics, all that bullshit? No, yeah. I don't. But it is what it is, man. I can't change it. I like watching Gage go really fast and showing you what a motorcycle could do. For dang sure.
Oh, and he is certainly doing that. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations internally here about how to interpret the success this young man is having. 11 straight wins, besting Bob Glidden's record, which is, I think, a record many people.
That's in the motorcycle class to me.
I mean, absolutely insane to me. But I'm curious to you, do you think that it's perhaps getting less attention because it happened on a motorcycle than if it were to have happened in Pro Stock or a funny car or Top Fuel? Like, I think that I can't imagine the pressure that we would feel at Drag Illustrated if a driver had come out and won 10 Pro Stock races in a row or won 10 Top Fuel races in a row. I think that, if that were happening,
Wes, if there was a Pro Mod car and did that, you'd be way on it.
Oh, I'd be way on it. I'd already moved this guy into my house. There's no doubt. I mean,
dude, like absolutely. The motorcycle industry is small compared to cars all the way around the world. Any motorcycle category in any professional sport is smaller than its counterpart in the cars. It's just, it's how it goes. So I don't know. There's no knock on anything. It's just what it is.
I guess, but does it beg the question of like how, I mean, maybe that's just a natural thing that's never going to be corrected necessarily. But I guess if I'm kind of speculating how a driver might feel, someone such as yourself that has the opportunity to perhaps do one or the other or both or what have you, I mean, is that going to steer your career? Like, to me, if I had to sit down with my son or daughter and talk to them about their racing endeavors, like no matter how passionate they were about, motorcycles or whatever, would you have to have a conversation that says, hey, if you want to achieve XYZ level of stardom or sponsorship support, you may have to consider getting into one of these other categories?
Yes and no. I think ultimately when it comes to something like that is like what can you afford in drag racing? Unfortunately, the motorcycle class is the cheaper one to do if you start out doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like what you grow into. Like Joey, for example. Joey's probably the greatest motorcycle rider, drag race motorcycle rider of all time. He's probably won in almost more than, I don't know for sure, Danny, probably more than anybody in any class from ET racing to pro stock motorcycle. He's probably won a race, and if not multiple championship, multiple records. He, grudge racing, everything on motorcycle wise. He's good at that, right? So, but that's also what they could afford to get into. Joey's not necessarily just a bike guy. He's a drag racing guy. He loves drag racing. So
for those that don't know, you're speaking, of course,
care.
of Joey Gladstone, who, when he burst onto the scene, was, in NHRA Pro Stock motorcycle phenom, absolutely. But you do. I mean, I think it's an interesting point. Like it's a fun discussion to have, because I can imagine, a discussion with somebody that has extreme levels of talent, and clearly some promise and some ability, and going, hey man, we may need to steer you towards this if you want to, create a career for yourself or earn a living in drag racing. However, I do think that there's a flip side to that coin, that you don't have to look around the sport of drag racing for very long to find people that are having success and selling sponsorships, racing Top Alcohol Dragster, or racing Drag Radial, or racing No Prep Kings. Like, it's not a one size fits all thing. I mean, I think there was a point in time where you had to run Top Fuel if you wanted to be even recognized as a pro level drag racer. I think over the course of the last few decades, it's the Mission Foods drag racing series. If you fall under that umbrella, you've made it, right, in your respective craft. But but you can, it would seem to me that it doesn't matter what you race if you're willing to put in the effort, the other side of it, the developing, a fan base, being active on social media, all of that stuff. I mean, it's just like two different ways to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, you could either pull a Greg Anderson and just work in the shop all the time, or get on social media and sell marketing. One of the two.
Yeah, it's two distinct paths, man. It's and it's tough, because we actually had a guest on last week, Jason Terrell from Tin Soldiers Race Cars, and he talked about how even as a chassis shop, he feels that they're a media business first, because that's essentially what's required in this day and age, is that you have to be able to not only walk the walk, but you've also got to be able to talk the talk. And it's tough, because not everybody is as uncomfortable. Like Greg Anderson's a great example. I mean, I think Greg's actually fantastic on camera, gives great interviews, is well-spoken. But you can definitely tell that his comfort zone is being in the engine shop.
Absolutely. The dude that guy gets off the dyno, and he's more excited to get off the dyno than when he gets more out of the car. He loves it, man. He loves being in that shop grinding. He's normally the first one there, last one to leave. Sundays, holidays, like 4th of July, he was there the morning part of 4th of July, and then he came on the boat with us.
That's kind of amazing, right?
Like, the dude's an animal. But all the guys like that, though, are all the real dudes, like that are grinders, that are building the stuff, that are like, but also the people on social media are grinding too. They're working it. Everybody works it. Sadly, to me, Wes, is the fact that drag racing, in a sense, it's a smaller racing industry. You got to love this stuff to do it. Like, not everybody gets sponsorship. Not everybody gets the opportunity. Not every this. There's not a ton of money in this stuff. You got to love this to do this.
There's no doubt. But I guess for me, I can't help but hold on to this glimmer of hope that at some point we can grow, this sport to a point where a young man or woman can aspire to become a professional drag racer, and there be a pathway to go do that and earn a living. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because that's what I want. I feel that opportunity is there. I mean, people hear me say it all the time, but drag racing is the great American motorsport. I think we find ourselves low man on the totem pole almost by choice. We haven't done the work as a sport to, grow our fan base, to get our sport in front of fresh eyeballs and new people. And I think that, obviously that's happening. And I think it's happening in the last few years, perhaps more so than it has in many. But I do think that it's important that we're chasing some sort of North Star, which is some kid that's racing a junior dragster right now. I'm hoping that there's a glimmer of hope for him, that if he's a really good driver and he does a really good job, someday down the road, he could get paid to do it. And that,
Corey's phone might have overheated.
The goal. Corey's
dude,
phone
it's like 100 degrees, and he's sitting outside.
I can't believe he's sitting out there. I thought your phone overheated.
Joey called me.
Oh, we're
I
talking
don't
about
see
it.
myself. I hope you see me. Am I all screwed up or what?
No, you're
No,
great,
good.
dude. Well, hey, and we
Okay,
won't
cool.
keep you too much longer, but
I'm
I
good,
would
dude.
love to hear. Tell me a little bit about what are you most excited about when it comes to pro stock racing, and as you look forward to this opportunity you have to jump in with at a time when there are just killers everywhere in pro stock. I mean, from Erica Enders and Greg Anderson, two icons of pro stock racing, to some of the young guns, up and comers, Dallas Glenn. I'm hearing that we're going to see Camry Caruso back in competition soon. Sienna Wild, Gus, the Coughlin, TJ Coughlin, Jeg Coughlin. What are you excited about being a part of that fraternity?
Jay Coughlin, I mean, Greg, Erica. There's a lot of people I can name right now, like Bo. All these people, when I was younger, I looked up to them. They're heroes of mine. I get to race against them now. I'm excited, man. It's gonna be cool. I'm living a dream, dude. Like you said, kid aspires to be a professional drag racer. That's me. I got put in a position, and I'm trying to take advantage of it, and I'm gonna make the most of it if I can.
Well, I think you are. I was telling some of the guys in the green room earlier, like, I think you've got a great personality. You've got an edge about you, willing to say what you think, let it all hang out. And I think that that's a great thing. Drag racing needs more people that are authentic to the brand. Like, a lot of our sports top tier competitors are pretty buttoned up, polished guys that are, big business owners and get,
corporate
spend
stuff,
their
man.
weekends.
I got my dad back. I'm backed by my dad and my mom, man. My dad is real as it gets. He's a farm boy from Oklahoma that built a business with my mother, and I'm lucky enough to just have J&A on the side of my car, which is my parents' company with 400 employees that I get to represent and go out there. All the hardworking men and women that just provide this for me in a sense. All I got to do is go to the shop, work, drive a rig, and show up to the racetrack and race. I'm a lucky man, man. Shoot, it's hard to complain.
No,
So,
hey,
it's
man, I
easy to
hear
say
you.
what I want to say because my dad don't really care. If I got to please him, man, if I don't say what I want to say or say the real, my dad will probably fucking be more pissed off at me than, He wanted me to say hi to you, by the way.
Oh,
It's not
good
what he
deal.
wanted me to tell you, but I won't say it
Oh.
online for you.
Yeah, it's probably something to tell that little fucker. He's called me little fucker a couple of times.
You want me to tell you what he really said?
Yeah.
Tell him to go fuck yourself.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Mr. Whiteley. I appreciate
He said, let
it.
him know when you got another race, we'll sponsor it too. It don't matter.
What do you think of? You're making your debut at Seattle, and I guess kind of closing commentary. What's the foreseeable future look like here? Are you going to run the remainder of the races and embark on the full tour in 2025?
Yep, absolutely, man. As long as my dad wants a car out there, I'll run it. Pretty much. Other than that, I'll stay in the shop and try to make some money. Me and Joey closed our little shop in Virginia. We were making a little bit of coin here and there. And we weren't making, we were barely making money, but we were, if we would have kept at it, we would have been able to survive by ourselves. But we closed that down and moved to KB, and we're lucky to be there. So if my dad don't want a door car out in Pro Stock car, then shoot, we'll just stay at the shop and work.
I love it, man. It's endless optimism. I love it. You're my kind of guy, dude, and I'm looking forward to seeing you behind the wheel of a pro stocker in the very near future. So Seattle start, continue on to Sonoma, run the rest of the races, and full tour in 2025. Man, that's a great thing for the pro stock category. I mean, I know that there are detractors out there that don't like that there are primarily two teams, but I got to tell you, man, having damn near 20 of these things at every race, I would argue that pro stock is amongst, if not the most healthy class in all of NHRA drag racing.
Very much agreed. And who else is going to do it? Like Richard stepped up and KB guys stepped up, and they deliver great power, great cars, and it's a lot of hassle, man. It's a lot of organization, a lot of rigs, a lot of everything, a lot of work.
Crazy.
A lot of brain power at the racetrack. You got to bring a lot of extra people, a lot of hotels, a lot of food, all that crap, man. It's a lot of work. So it's like, who else is stepping up and doing it? Obviously not. If them two guys go, groups go away, then that class is dead. So
there's no doubt. I mean, I say this
honestly, and it's pretty fair.
It's important. It is pretty fair, man. And I think it's actually, JT talks about it like Team Red versus Team Blue. It's not a bad thing. Like, honestly, it gives us a lot we were talking at the beginning of the show about how our fans, they need fed. Like, they need controversy. They need things to talk about. They need things to speculate. They need things to debate about online. That's an important part of sports
only two
culture.
Things that'd be better would be Ford versus Chevy or Miller versus Budweiser.
Well, I tell you what, we maybe need to make.
Speaking
that
of Miller and
happen.
Budweiser, Corey, I'll be up there in about 20 minutes. Don't leave the dock without me. All right.
You know it.
Yeah,
as soon as I can get turned loose of this show here,
Hang up, start driving.
Yeah, hang up and start driving. Corey, thank you so much, man. Get back to having fun. Tell everybody hello from us. We look forward to seeing you rowing gears in an NHRA Pro Stock car. Congrats, man. We can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate
See
it,
you,
buddy.
man.
Talk soon.
See you, Bob.
You can't, it doesn't get much better than Corey. I mean, that's living the life right there. Like, right. I
Yeah,
love my dad's my sponsor. So I guess, I mean, I'd be in more trouble if I didn't say what I think, right?
Don't sugarcoat it, man. I mean, hey, he's enjoying it. You know, like you said, he's a lucky man and he's embracing it. And that's going to be exciting, man. Talking about like safety and overcoming injury and stuff.
Oh, no shit.
I don't know if everyone remembers his accident where he broke his leg in half, basically, sawed the bone down like an inch on the track and had to have all this reconstructive surgery. We saw him periodically with that leg stretcher on over the last few years. Do you remember seeing that every time at Charlotte? We were hanging out with our drink hard racing buddies and he comes rolling in with that. So a guy that's overcome some stuff as well. And I'm excited to see him in pro stock.
Me too, man. I think it's going to be a good thing. We need more cowboys, and cowgirls out here that are, the drive it like you stole it type, wear your heart on your shirt sleeve type. I do think that as our sport has gotten more corporate, there's been more pressure to conform and say all the right things. And I mean, I think that's part of the reason.
We got two cowboys in the green room right now.
Do we? Bring them on, big dog. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, glad to have them. The ones and onlys. Alex Laughlin, Scott Palmer, the people's champion. What's up, boys?
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! Holy crap, we're gonna have to mute. We're gonna have to mute Scotty on and off. What's up, buddy? We'll go to Scotty.
He said that was gonna be a problem.
I'm in the truck.
No.
I got the dog. Y'all hear me okay?
We kind of.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you, man.
Hey,
no.
Just so you know, I got the studio set up.
I see it.
It's a backdrop.
Mark,
I got my trucker hat on for you. Let's go.
Yeah, where's Mark? He needs to see this for invoice purposes.
Yeah, for invoice purposes, Mark Beatty needs to be made aware that
and Tommy Cunningham's getting one too.
And Tommy Cunningham,
apparently.
we got one up there. And PBR, we need to shoot them one. We need to get accounts payable email at PBR and shoot that over to them straight away. So guys, just real quick, Alex, I'm going to throw it to you. Can you give me kind of like the rundown on what's taking place this weekend? For those that don't know, got a Top Fuel match race, but maybe give us some insight on this and how this all came to be, and I guess how exciting is it to jump back behind the wheel of a Top Fuel dragster?
Yeah, I mean, my side of it is the smaller side, I would say. I just have this awesome opportunity because my buddy Palmer hit me up and said that he had 2 Top Fuel cars going to Virginia, and he can only drive one at a time. And he said that if I was available, come out and hit the gas for him, and we'll run a match race like we did in Dallas a couple of years ago. And I said, well, I'm free that weekend, so plan on it. We'll be there.
You can't beat it, man. Scott, how exciting for you? I mean, after all you've been through, the crash, the fire, and the nitro stewed, to be back looking about jumping behind the wheel, the quickest and fastest cars on the planet. I mean, what a way to return. A PBR, a title right sponsor of the PDRA Pro Stars event. So, like, this is like ticking all the boxes for Scott Palmer.
Yeah, it really is. And not only that, this is where we debuted the deal last year at this same event, the same PDRA All-Star event. And then right after that, I got hurt, so I kind of messed that up. But, with PBR, their thinking is, they're used to cowboys getting hurt, going down, having to recover. So it was no problem for them. They actually stuck with me through the whole thing, along with a lot of other people, that helped me get through this. So for me to come back out and get behind the wheel here is the perfect place to do it. And then PBR actually jumped on board with the Franklins and Tyler and Virginia Motorsports Park, and it's the PBR Night of Fire. So, that's a great combination, and I plan to, work something out with racetracks across the country. That's what needs to happen, I think we need to do more of these small events and introduce Top Fuel racing to other people besides the ones who just go to national events.
I couldn't agree more. And real quick, are you driving?
Yeah, I'm driving.
He has his phone taped to his visor.
That's because I'm like, I think homeboy's rolling gears right now.
I am rolling gears. I do not. Yes, I am. Yes. I'm
nothing.
not that good at it, but I do like to drive the truck. So,
Oh, no,
so if I'm
it's
not
hard to
looking at
beat.
the camera, I'm trying to watch the road. Actually, I'm a terrible driver. I've ran about 5 people off in the grass on this trip already. So this may help me or it may hurt me. Y'all may witness the end right here too. We don't know. It may be live.
Oh my gosh. Alex, what are you doing running around with this cat? Right? I mean, do your parents go like, holy moly, this dude's going to get you in trouble?
One word would just say, I would call it blessed for sure. You know, before we started the Top Fuel deal years ago, Scott and I didn't really know each other very well, but we've become really good friends, and same with my parents as well. 10 out of 10, some of the best folks that exist.
I couldn't agree more. We were actually talking before the show started that like anything that we post on our social media that includes Scott Palmer gets views. It's unbelievable the following that you've built, Scott. Like I can't say enough about it. And I think it honestly kind of falls in line with the discussion we were having with Cory Reed, is that like this is a sport that was built on the backs of, you know, blue collar, hardworking, grease monkey gearheads, and you speak their language. I think it's like super authentic, where it's like, I respect that guy. I don't know anything about him, but I respect it. He's driving his Top Fuel rig down the road right now, getting ready to go unload it, get it ready to race, and then he's going to drive it. I think that type of thing. Alex, do you think that's part of the magic? It's this super authentic, relatable story that is Scott Palmer.
Yeah, 100%. He's the people's champ, right? Nobody ever has, and I'm not just saying this because he's right here looking at me also. Nobody ever has anything bad to say about him. Just like you said, when something goes out on social, everybody, it's 100% positivity. It's Scott Palmer for president. I think that it resonates well with a lot of people because back in the day, before everybody else had, truck drivers and these giant teams and everything, everybody had to do it themselves. And so everybody always has more respect for the people that show up with their car on an open trailer, right? It's like you see a picture of it and people are like, oh yeah, like full respect for that guy. And it's kind of the same thing.
I couldn't agree, because it's like I think I couldn't agree more, because I've been blown away by it, honestly, because it kind of tells you can learn a lot from Scott's story, in that being yourself and putting yourself out there. That's the other thing. Like throughout all of Scott's ordeal with the crash in the Nitro Studebaker, like he was super transparent about it. He owned any of the issues and the shortcomings or whatever, and talked about it and addressed those things. I mean, I remember, if you remember, like on the heels, and I'd love to hear Scott talk about this, immediately following the crash, there was video circulating privately, right? Like people were sending the video around, but what Scott do? He posts it on his own social media. And he told me that he was going to put it out there because he thinks people need to see it. People want to see it. Hell, he wants them to see it. And I think that level of transparency, to me, it's like, okay, do we need, like, it's the flashing blue light where the deals are in Walmart? Like, clearly that approach works, right? Because Scott has built this audience and built this following by being honest with them, being transparent with them, telling what's going on, whether they like it or not. And I think that, and I mean, fortunately for him, most of the time like it, right? But do you think that there's something to be learned from that, and just how you kind of build out? I mean, Alex, I can say much about the same thing about you, in that you have shared a lot of your behind the scenes stuff, a lot of your, crazy side-by-side racing, or buying horses, or whatever you call it. What's it called? Adopting horses and other random wildlife. I mean, you put yourself out there, you share everything with people. And I think that they appreciate that, because they want to know. Like, I think it's a really surreal experience for everybody to like think that anybody else in the world cares what they're doing on a Tuesday, but they do, especially your fans. And I mean, I'm just curious your take on that.
2 words: it's real and raw, and that's what everybody's after, right? It's all of the live stuff, live videos, the behind the scenes, and that's, I'm racing No Prep Kings now, and that's what made the Street Outlaws such a successful deal. It's not just racing, like I'm not to bash NHRA at all, or Fox by any means, but when we watch those broadcasts, you have a little picture of the driver. They talk about you for a second, car goes down the racetrack, and then win or lose, whatever. Sometimes you get an interview, sometimes you don't. Sometimes something crazy happens and you don't ever have that chance to explain it. And that's what people want to see. They want to see what happened, why it didn't make a good run, why it blew up, why whatever happened. And the people of Street Outlaws, the fans now, they're so invested in these drivers as people, that they would literally, many of them, take a bullet for some of these folks. It's just it's a completely different fan base, and it's strong.
I agree. And I think that is honestly, I remember this is a weird thing to reference, but I had a conversation a long time ago with Big Chief. Remember, I mean, I think about the stardom that Big Chief achieved, and in many regards still enjoys, even without being on the show or about being consistently on Discovery Channel, through his own channels and YouTube. But Big Chief said to me one time, he goes, drag racing, like traditional drag racing, they've got like the hardcore fans sewn up. Like, they've got all the guys wearing Proline shirts. They got all the guys wearing Fuel Tech shirts. They've got the hardcore black shirt crowd. But what he said to me that I found interesting was, he goes, what Street Outlaws has and No Prep Kings has is they have like the casual just fan. Like someone who's looking for something to do on a Saturday afternoon, found their way to the drag strip and fell in love with one of these characters. And it's less, yes, maybe they aren't going to go buy an ECU from Fuel Tech, but like they're still a valuable consumer that spends money, buys things, and maybe they don't buy hot rod parts, but maybe they buy, Bic razors or Budweiser beer or whatever. There's other opportunities to get sponsors and partners involved that are after that demographic. And I think sometimes we've had blinders on, or like been so laser focused on our hardcore fan base or our hardcore racer base, that we've not paid perhaps enough attention to, developing those casual fans and getting them to the point that they take a bullet for their favorite driver.
Absolutely. It's low hanging fruit for so many of them, like you said, just because they may not be the ones directly buying the hardcore race parts and whatnot. There are 1000% plenty of products out there that everybody is interested in. And it's still all within the same demographic, right? Even if it's something as simple as, like you said, big razors or Axe deodorant, there's hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people that you could sell this stuff to.
I agree, man. And I think that the door is open for our sport to start moving into that more mainstream space and going after some of those mainstream partners. Because I've said this to many friends, but it's like, I can't help but feel like drag racing is like one or two key partners away from like an entire new world for our sport. Like if we had a partner that would like really wrap their arms around our sport and embrace the community and leverage it to its fullest potential, there's no telling where this whole deal could end up at some point in time, because I believe it is the great American motorsport. Scott, Alex, I want to talk to you guys just briefly. Do you think that there's a chance, Scott, that we can bring back the age of match racing, where like, I think that that's an important thing that could really do a lot of positives for the sport of drag racing. I've had some discussions internally here about how we could go about putting together something of a match race tour, perhaps. And doing these events more and more frequently and bringing in different talent in different market. I mean, what's your thought on the future of match racing? Do you think it can be revitalized, Scott?
I definitely do. 100%. That's what I mean, everything I'm doing right now, I'm like Alex. I have nothing against NHRA. I love NHRA. I've worked my entire lifetime to run an NHRA Top Fuel car. That's all that's been my goal my whole life. And I'll still continue to do that. But I do think that the future is in match racing and going to these places and bringing people like PBR in and bringing their following. They have on social media, they have almost 1 million more followers than NASCAR. I mean, we're such a small sport, and we should be a big sport. We should not be a small sport. We need to do something to get ourselves in front of their audience. And I think one thing we mess up doing is we try to bring them to our audience, and their audiences are bigger than ours. We need their audience. And that's one thing that I'm dead set on getting done is I want to make people know what drag racing is all about. I'm going to stop here so I can hear a little bit better. But I mean, that's one of the things that we're missing. I I think everybody is eager to take their money to put the logo on their car, but they're not using it the right way. And I'm not saying I am either. I don't even know if I know how to do it. But what I've done over the years with absolutely nothing has worked for me. So I intend to continue doing it. But I think the only reason there's 2 cars running right now in my pits is because nobody would go match race. Nobody will do it. They'll drive across the country if there's a hope they can qualify for $10,000 qualifying. They'll spend 20 or 30 or 50 to get it, to run an NHRA race. Or they could go and make a deal with the track, go locally, find you some local sponsors, do something to sell some apparel, and you can come out better than if you are not there with a corporate sponsor. And my sponsorship with PBR, one of the things I told them was, I do not want to be a corporate guy. I will never be corporate. If you're looking for corporate, I'm not your guy. I'm not interested. I want to be able to go here and there and wherever I want and run a deal like this weekend. They're sending bull riders out. They're sending cattle contractors out. I just think we need to do something different or try something different. What you did with the Top Fuel cars at Bradenton was unbelievable. And, I want to be a part of that, but we need to do other things too. We need to do stuff all over the country. Scott Higgs, we're going to do something big at Flying H. We're going to do something big there with Top Fuel cars. I don't really know what it is. It's all just talk, and Mark Mickey and, all of those guys, Blake Housley and Scott Higgs. Those guys are going to do something. They're like Tyler and
Tommy and Judy, and we need track owners like that are willing to try something different, because a lot of it is just kind of doing what we've always done and expecting different results. And I think that the time is now. We felt a few years ago, I felt like we were going to see our sport kind of move towards regionalized events, independent events. I think whenever we saw, right now there's a slew of really great independent drag racing events that are kind of like lifestyle events. I like to believe World Series of Pro Mod falls into that. Import versus domestic World Cup finals up in Maryland. Donald Long's Lights Out. Donald Long's No Mercy events. Like, those events kind of have a life of their own and they stand on their own 2 feet. But I do think that, to your point, taking that type of production or that type of, singular show vibe to smaller facilities and going to different parts of the country, I keep daydreaming about a world where we're, booking in a match race. Like, instead of having a UFC fight card, we would have like a Drag Illustrated race card. I know we couldn't use that because it's kind of got some, but where we go in and I've got Scott Palmer's going to race Alex Laughlin in Top Fuel. I got Ryan Martin's going to race Kai Kelly in Big Tire. I got Dean Marinas is going to race Rich Bruder in X275. I've got, and just build out a fight card. Because the fact is that most of the fans, there are certain racers that they want to see compete.
100%.
So why not guarantee your fans are going to see that, instead of having your fan buy a ticket and cross their fingers that their favorite driver qualifies or their favorite driver doesn't lose on a hole shot in the first round. Instead, be able to deliver a guaranteed product that, hey, if you're the biggest Scott Palmer fan in the world, the biggest Alex Laughlin fan in the world, come to VMP Saturday and you're going to get to see these guys make 3 runs and spend their whole day there. And to me, I almost think that could be the future of our sport at some level, where we're not going to these mega facilities. We're not going to ZMAX and trying to sell 30, 40,000 tickets, but you're going to the Galots. You're going to the Extreme Raceway Parks. You're going to the Flying H's, kind of these mid-sized venues that you can fill up and put on match races that's just organized with here's the bill of goods. Here's the races you're going to get to see, race fan, and these are the races you want to see. So let's just make them happen. I think we use the UFC a lot, but it's very similar to PBR. PBR wanted to create an environment where all the best bull riders in the world were in one place. On Saturday night, if you go to the PBR event, you can trust that the best bull riders in the world are going to be there. And that was our goal with World Series of Pro Mod. I wanted to create a singular event that the best dudes in the world are going to be at. These are the baddest guys and gals on the planet Earth. And they're all going to be here doing battle amongst one another. And I think if we could kind of take that and distill it down, because I do recognize that it's hard to organize those big events, 200 cars, 60 some pro mods or whatever. But if you could distill it down to what the fans actually want, is they want to see, Jay Cox race Tommy Franklin or Jim Halsey. They want to see Spencer Hyde race Kurt Stedding. They want to see Todd Tutterow race Melanie Salemi. Why not just make those races happen? Right? I mean, if
that would be the ultimate match race, Mark Mickey, Todd Moyer. I mean,
yeah,
so many pairs of cars that you could put together. You could put together 20 pairs of cars and not see the same class. It would be an awesome show, and have top. Actually, myself and Jim Hughes have discussed this before. It's just hard to get everything together when you're racing, and then the off season was odd for me, but I mean, there's got to be a way to do it. We just all have to find a way to make this happen. There's no reason you couldn't do that. All these stars could go to, let's just say 6 times a year, 6 or 8 times a year, and you could see your favorite nitrous car, your favorite turbo car, your favorite Pro Charger car. Everybody would be involved. Top Fuel, funny car.
Alex, what do you make of that? Like, because I honestly think that that's perhaps amongst the next things that I want to accomplish is, there's a great comment here from Steve Lesueur. Can you sell enough tickets to properly pay and promote a match race? And I would argue that, yes, you can. I mean, because I honestly think that, like, if I look at my ticket sales from World Series of Pro Mod, and we try hard to create metrics and track sales and know where these sales come from, I'm here to tell you guys that there are a handful of drivers that drive all the ticket sales. And I know that is something that some people may take offense to, but facts are facts. I mean, it's not so much about Pro Mod as much as it is about Stevie Fast Jackson, Manny Bajinga, Alex Laughlin. Each of these guys carry a fan base with them. I mean, I can tell you right now that John Force, he drove about 10% of the total ticket traffic for Pro Superstar Shootout, singularly. He alone drove about 10% of the ticket sales. And it's like, that tells me that I could have sold those tickets if just John Force raced. If he would have went and made singles, I probably could have sold those tickets. So moving forward, I mean, what do you make of that, Alex? Couldn't you see a world where we've got, I've thought about this. You could have a Top Fuel World Championship. You could have a Funny Car World Championship, just belts, right? And you've got someone who's defending the belt. Like right now, whoever you get to be your Top Fuel, the winner of the first event would be your Top Fuel champion. And then you'd bring in someone to challenge him a month later. And then, sometimes you have Top Fuel on the fight bill. Sometimes you don't. You know what I mean? Like I really am excited about that concept because it could be big.
It needs to be a BMF belt. It needs to be a BMF belt.
Yeah.
Like UFC.
Yeah.
That's what it needs to be. I mean,
I love it. I think that
wild like that,
I think that it's really a good direction where every single pair is, every matchup is, it feels like a final round. You know what I mean? The thing with the medium-sized venues, like you said, and like John Force being at the Pro Superstar Shootout, that's that medium-sized venue, right? And you talk about how he increased ticket sales single-handedly so much. In my opinion, I think that a lot of that comes from the venue that it's at, right? It's a smaller place. It's a little more exclusive. There's not as many people that can fit in there. So if you are there, if you're on the ground, then you have a better chance of getting to see John Force, yourself. I think that, like you said, every category has a match race of some sort, and that way it feels like every round really matters. Every round is as intense and has the meaning of a final round. So it's not just, a couple pairs going down the track. It's like, this is the next one. What's going to happen? Everybody's standing or on the edge of their seats from the time that the cars fire up.
Well, I mean, I think about any time Greg Anderson and Erica Enders meet in eliminations, whether it's or in qualifying, like that run has more significance because there's history between these two. They're at the top of their game. They've been going back and forth for years. I mean, to me, like that's a great example. I mean, NHRA even does it on race day when they talk about their marquee matchups. Those are the matchups that have a little bit more weight to them. They're the matchups that mean a little bit more. I keep laying awake at night going, why not just take the marquee matchups and take that show on the road. Like it reduces the amount of logistic infrastructure that you need. You're not trying to, because I mean, I tell people all the time, whenever I have 200 racers on the property, those are 200 customers. They're 200 clients that I've got to take very good care of to the best of my ability. And it's very difficult to do that 20 times a year. But if you were to take that same level of care and concern, and to Scott's point, say, hey, we're going to book in 10 match races, and it's going to be, this is our fight bill. We're going to have 2 or 3 prelims, your guys that are kind of on the come up, or maybe don't have the fan following, but you want to introduce them to the fan following that these other drivers have them early in the day. And then you run your whatever, your co-main event, your main event, and fans get to see exactly what they want to see. And as a promoter or an event producer, I've got 20 people to take care of versus 200. You know, it's a much more manageable situation. And I really do think that I think it's right there. I'm curious, and let's workshop this right now, because this is one of the issues that I've had. I want to do this match race deal, right? And I want to do it next year. Like, I'd like to start doing these. But one of the challenges I have is I think you've got to guarantee the fans that they're going to get to see you guys make 3 runs. I think that's fair. So how do you make it real competition? Do you just make them run all 3 rounds, even if one driver sweeps all 3? Or how do you add like some layer? Because it used to be best 2 out of 3, like the old match racing days, you know, and in the old match racing days, there was some gamesmanship. Hey, I'm going to let you win the first one. You let me win the second one, and we'll run heads up in the final. And, you know, and we'll see how it all shakes out. To do what I want to do, I think there has to be more integrity. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be real competition. So I'm curious, how would you guys solve the make sure the fans get to see 3 runs conundrum?
Yeah, I think
that's on the spot.
That's a tough question to answer, maybe on the fly, just because, like you said, and I would never admit publicly to laying down around, you know, to be able to, you know, I'll give you 1, you give me 1, and then we'll race heads up in the final. Especially because my luck is I give 1 over, and then the one that really matters, you know, something breaks and shoot myself in the foot. But yeah, I think three rounds is realistic. But how to get there, unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for that.
I thought about like a double or nothing final where the first 2 rounds had to happen, right? And then in the final, they have to run again. But if the guy sweeps it, there's a bigger, I don't know. I was trying to find a way to
a buyback, you know, you lose 2 rounds and then you get to, you know, here's $1,000 to take that one back and give me 1 more shot, double or nothing.
Yeah, there needs to be like the third run needs to pay, let's just say $5,000 more for the third run period, whoever wins. That way, if you've lost 2 in a row, you've got a shot to get something to go home with.
Yeah.
And then, something like that, because you have to have some kind of reward, or like you say, it's going to be 2 and over. And
I thought about there was a way that you could incorporate like reaction time, where like you give the drivers points for turning on the wind light. You give the driver points for low ET of the round. You give the driver points for top speed of the round. You give the driver points for reaction time. And then you see, like, you've got to win, but you also want to compile the most points. And then the final round, everything's double or something. The third run. I don't know. I think there's a way to do it. You don't want to make it too complex, but I do think it would be something fun for the fans to follow. For sure. Where you're because it's similar to mixed martial arts where they track significant strikes. This guy landed more strikes than that guy. This guy secured more takedowns. So maybe there's a way to do it where there's like almost a scoring system in place. I don't know. I think
would you do that 8th mile? All of them 8th mile?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think that it's safer, it's faster, and you have less risk of downtime. You know, that's the thing that I kind of go back to, is that anything that we can do to tighten up our show, we have to do. And most of those big explosions happen beyond the 8th mile. Most of those big oil downs happen beyond the 8th mile. And I'm sure you'd hear, I don't know that the fans, I know that there is a hardcore fan base that wants to see everybody run these things to a 1/4 mile. And I think if it was up to them, they'd watch them run a 1/2 mile, you know, but I think realistically, if we were to build something new, a new platform, a new brand of drag racing, I think that it would happen on the 8th mile, because it also gives you more opportunities to go to different venues. Like, because you got to go to Galat, like that's a spot. You know, you got to go to some of these tracks, but you can't run quarter mile there, or even 1,000 foot with those cars. So I don't know. I do think it's an interesting thing, and I appreciate all you're doing, Scott, because I really think that you've been ahead of the curve on this. I mean, people maybe don't realize, but you have 2 Nitro Pro mods for this exact reason, right? Exactly. Because you want to be able to go to a track and say, it's not just me. You don't have to get me to race some local yokel or race or bring in. I'm a package deal.
You have to be up at the time when I did that, and even this with the dragsters, you have to be able to guarantee a track 2 cars have a match race. And you get tired of calling people and asking, and everybody on here is going to blow my phone up and say, hey, call me next time you have a match race and I'll do it. But 9 times out of 10 when I do that, they don't do it. You know, they have a family get together, they have a, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I have a birthday party I have to go to, or it's not enough money or something. So the only way to do that is, you know, you got to control your own destiny. And that's the only way I can do it, which is a stupid reason to do it. But I will tell you that Lee Calloway's got 2 cars, and he'll eventually, within a year or so, by the end of next year, he'll have 2 cars up and running. That's 4. That's 2 guys who can guarantee 4 quality cars. Now you're getting to where you've got a show. There's enough Nitro Pro mods out there right now where there's 4 or 5 that eventually, you know, I've had a few little setbacks, or I'd already have mine out, but once we get those together, you have to rethink this. Now you have to put on a show and a race to go with it. You have to put on a show. It's going to be a little bit like No Prep Kings. You need to put a show on for the fans, but they have to haul ass. This can't be you know, those No Prep King cars, those are no joke. I see people talk about them. Those cars haul ass. And we need to do the same thing with our match race show. We need to have fast ass cars and a lot of cars out there. If you run up to the 8th mile, you'll make some new stars. You'll see new people come out, because you're not going to get Antron to come to all these races. You're not going to get John Force's team to come to the races. You might get them here and there every once in a while, but you're not going to get them steady to come to these races. So you're going to have to put someone out there and put a target on their back.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of it will really come back to just how it's presented. You know, like that's so often the story, is that it's not really, it's how it's demonstrated or how it's presented to the masses. Like, hey, this is a big deal. Like I tell my team all the time, no matter what project we're doing, Scott and you and I have had this, if we treat it like a big deal, it will be a big deal. If we treat it like no big deal, guess what? It'll be no big deal. So a lot of it is just how you approach it. And I think because I think that there is probably some fans or perhaps some track owners that think that this is like less, you know, oh, we can't get an NHRA national event, so we had to settle for having this match race. I would want to flip the script and go, you don't want that NHRA national event. What you want is us to bring in an 8 race card and melt this place down with the biggest names in the game, you know, and only take up a small square footage of your parking, so you can have a bracket race, you can do other supporting things, you can have a junior dragster race, but from, you know, 2 to 4 or whatever, 3 to 4, we're going to run round 1. From 5 to 6, we're going to run round 2, and from 7 to 8, we're going to run round 3. This whole thing's done in an evening. And if you miss the first round because you can't get off work, you still got 2 guaranteed shots of seeing your favorite drivers compete at the highest level. I don't know, man. I think that there's a pathway towards that. And it is about a lot of the tracks that can't house, like quite literally can't house an NHRA national event, quite literally can't house a PDRA national event. So if you could reduce some of that, you would have more flexibility and be able to go to different venues and do some really exciting stuff, man. It's well, before we cut you guys loose, Scott, you've got a lot of experience in the No Prep King. You've been involved with that deal for a long time. You're close personal friends with a lot of the people involved. Alex, fresh on the scene, halfway through your first full season in No Prep Kings competition, staring down the barrel of the Elite Series No Prep Elite later this year. What's your overall take? I mean, give us the 411 on all things No Prep racing for Alex Laughlin.
It's been good, man. I've had a really good time so far. One of the things that I've really liked a lot, like to kind of touch on what Corey Reed was saying earlier on, is the politics aren't as bad. Everybody out there honestly is there to have a good time and to have fun. and it definitely shows. They've been great events. It was a weird time for me personally to get on board with it, getting away from Discovery Channel, not knowing exactly where it's headed and what's going on. I know that they're working on huge things coming, but the way I look at it, and a lot of people have been dogging it since it's not on Discovery anymore, and now it's just live streamed on YouTube and whatnot. But the reality of it is people are looking at it from its extreme high where it was to now with a little bit of the unknowns, right? What I compare it to is if this was a normal drag race, if this was a race that Donald Long was hosting that I used to go to, that had absolute packed houses, the starting line was completely full of people. When I left those races, I said that was a badass drag race. There were a ton of people there, and it was as good as it can get. It wasn't on TV, and so what? It was still one of the best times I've ever had. It was a grassroots, awesome knockdown throwout drag race, and that's exactly what NPK still currently is. They're completely packed houses. The fans are insanely loyal. I'm like I said, I'm having a great time. We started the season off really strong, kind of got lost a little bit. We've made a ton of changes to the car, and it's really fast again. And I'm definitely hopeful. I haven't been able to hit every single race, so we're not where we really want to be in the points, especially now that you have to be in the top 16 to get into the championship shootout. But we're only a couple of positions out, and I think there's enough races left, and I'm very confident that we can do good enough to be able to get back in that top 16.
Yeah, I was not surprised, but surprised to see you make the switch from Pro Charger to the screw blower. Does it feel good to have that thing back sticking out the hood and trying to overlook that thing?
Yeah, the screw blower is it's been my thing since the blue car, right? At the very beginning of getting into radio racing, and that swap had nothing to do with Pro Charger, other than the fact that it's a weird story and situation of why it happened. But we had two motors that weren't the same. We thought they were the same. We had to sell one to get another one. Yada yada. What we decided was we were going to get rid of both Proline motors because they weren't the same, and go with PJS. Brandon Pez is right up the road from us. We live in the absolute middle of nowhere, so it's really ironic that he's like a 30-minute drive. He's the one that's tuning for us. He knows screw blowers best as well. I'm still a huge Pro Charger fan. Like, I'm wearing the shirt right now, so it had nothing to do with them.
Same here, yeah.
And I'm extremely thankful for the support that they lent and offered. But for us, it just made the most sense for us to be able to get kind of back in the direction that it's just go with what you know. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I again, nothing against Pro Charger, but I absolutely love the problem of looking around the backside of a blower trying to stage. It's awesome.
It's sure fun to watch, man. Scott, what do you make of that? I mean, would you agree that, you've seen, I know at one point in time there was rumors of talk about you running a fuel car in no prep racing. I know you're a big fan of what they've created there. What's your take on the state of affairs right now? Because there is, like Alex is saying, is there some commentary online that it's not on Discovery anymore? But to your point, Alex, and that's the feedback that I've gotten from the racers that I've talked to, is like, hey man, these places are still packed. People are wall to wall. We're selling merch. Seems like times are good.
I definitely think they're good. I think they're in a gray area right now that people just don't understand. But I know Sam good enough to know that there is something big on the horizon. And I've talked to him about it, about having fuel cars, and we actually were really close. And then there was some accidents happened, and we decided to back off a little bit. And in the meantime, I honestly think what we talk about with the match race deal with in our side of the world would work also. And I'm more focused on that right now. But as far as no prep kings, I would say look out, something big's coming, because I've heard I've talked to Sam about it too, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's still fuel cars run at some of these big events that he will have. But that following is not going to go away, because it's so big. You go to one of those events, it is a hardcore group of fans. That's what we need that in drag racing on the NHRA side, and I don't think it's going to happen. But you reference everything, like I like the way you reference it to UFC. Since I'm involved with PBR, everyone needs to go to a PBR event, and you watch these guys get on a bull, and you never hear anything negative about him. You never hear, oh, this is so-and-so, he hasn't rode a bull all year. All you hear is, here's this kid coming out on a bull. Watch out, he's about to break one out. He's about to break into a winning streak. We have to pump our people up in a positive way, not like when the statistics come across the TV. Sometimes you need to leave some of that off. Sometimes you need to not say hasn't qualified for 6 years, because everybody out there with the top fuel car, funny car, whatever they have, they've spent everything they have to get it, and there's not one person in the stands that feels sorry for them because they're down there actually doing it. But I think we need to do the positive thing, and I think No Prep Kings, they pump people up. I mean, they put them out there.
I think
I'm
that
a big Callie Mills fan, so I want them to pump Callie Mills up some more, because I think she's got what it takes as far as she's an awesome driver, and they've got 3 cars. She can run whatever combination she wants, but I think there needs to be more room outside of No Prep Kings for that style of promotion. They're promoting their drivers. And that's
a lot of it is just, I hate to say it, but it to me, it's like common sense, because I thought that same thing. Like, I can't count the number of times I've heard it, like, hey, that's not the almost ready line. That's the ready. Like, hey, man, these guys are trying to get ready. Clearly, they're trying to get ready. Like, this is shit's hard, and it's like, we've got to, I tell my media team, and whenever I address the media at my events, I ask kindly. I don't tell them what to do, but I do ask our media partners. I say, hey, man, speak about our drivers with reverence. Like, lift these people up at every opportunity. Like, they are our pathway to the future. You and I carrying around pads of paper are not going to take this sport where it could go. These guys and gals spending their hard-earned money going drag racing they're our vehicle to go to the future, and we need to hold them in high regard. Like, if they have a bonehead move, or if they have some sort of screw up, don't focus on that. Don't even talk about it. Ignore it. Right. Those things. Because those things happen, right? This is a complicated sport. My dad taught me a long time ago. It doesn't matter how good a part you buy. It doesn't matter how much you prepare. Mechanical things break. And you never know when those moments are going to happen. And to me, it is that in those moments, there's an opportunity to, we got to lift these guys up. We got to celebrate them. And that's what I see, consistently having happened with Street Outlaws, and then the transition to No Prep Kings. Star building. They've put a lot of energy in turning these folks into larger than life characters, instead of at every turn trying to somehow normalize or berate them for what they haven't yet accomplished, and I think it's a really strong point, because it's I heard Brian Lone say one time that drag racers tend to eat their young. And I think that there's some truth to that, not everybody, knows how to do this stuff. Not everybody, has tons of experience. This may be their first time out, and we need to hold them. I really do think that we need to, like I said, treat them with reverence, and when they falter, which they're sure to do, that probably doesn't need to be on the highlight reel. It doesn't need to be in the pre-race package. There's no point in talking about that. Unless it fits with the story or fits with the narrative. But anyways, guys, I think this has been really interesting, man. A lot of really, really positive insight and stuff that I think we can all learn from as we move forward. So I guess, Scott, would you, if I put on a match race next year, will you come be our inaugural competitor in Top Fuel and compete for the belt?
100% I will.
Okay.
100%. And I'll tell you something else I'll do. This is missing in our sport too. There is no, these cars are touchy and they're critical on weight and this and that. So what if somebody pulls out there, does a burnout, can't get it in reverse? I think you should shut the top fuel car. I would love to do it at a national event. Somebody has trouble, shut the thing off. I know it's a pain in the ass to back it down, get the fuel out, start it, messes up the clutch, whatever. Who cares? What a great part of the show. No Prep Kings has a lot of my respect for what they do. Now, sometimes they don't weigh, and that's fine too. But I think there should be an option of, hey, you want to wait on this guy at our match races when we do it? I know NHRA is not going to do that, but I'm just saying at our match races, I think you should have the option. And if you don't do it, even if you're in a fuel car, there's going to be people think you're an asshole for not doing it. There's going to be people turn on you.
And maybe you are. And maybe, right? And I think that, but that's a good, like, to me, I look at that. It's kind of like we were talking earlier in the show and, talking about the John Force situation. And there's been like fans have been clamoring online to find out what happened. And I feel like in a lot of ways, those fans are getting scolded, like for caring or being curious. Like I see all this like backbiting comments like, hey, you don't drive a funny car, so you shouldn't concern yourself with this. Right. That's not how we should treat our fans. Of course they care. You know what I mean? Like, it's every time we watch anything happen, we all talk about what we would have done, right? Or what we should have done, what should have been done differently. I don't think we need to lean away from that or scold our fans for doing it. We need to lean into it.
And everybody loves John Force, and everybody is just genuinely concerned. We're all scared for him. We want him back. We need him. We need
be there, no doubt, man. Be there, no doubt.
Other. We have to do something. We have to take somebody, and somebody has to be John Force 20 years from now. Who is that going to be?
Maybe Alex Laughlin.
Maybe Laughlin.
Those shoes are gigantic. Couldn't even imagine.
Nobody will ever
like
fill
that.
them. But
Nobody.
We need to be nurturing somebody to do something. Right now, we're just beating people down. Right now,
I tell you, and I want to.
I got to give business in there, and somebody takes their place, and then they're here for a while, and then they're gone, and we have to do something to promote our drivers.
I agree, and I will tell you one more thing about just sportsmanship and how it can add to the show. We had a calamity in the final round of the World Series of Pro Mod back in March, where we roll around to run the final, $100,000 on the line. We've had this epic day of racing, the tightest field in the history of Pro Modified. The sun is shining, angels are singing. I mean, it's like a magical moment, and Derek Ward's car won't fire. And I remember my stomach just sinking. And I ran over there, and they're like, it won't start. We need to put a starter on it or whatever. We need to, whatever was wrong. I can't remember. And they go, I went over to Halsey, and I crouched down, and he's strapped in, ready to go. And he is one of the more intimidating drivers that exist in this whole space. Like, he is a very all-business guy. And I said, what do you want to do, Jim? And he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to wait. I want to see a fucking drag race. And he goes, me too. And I thought and I think that was an iconic, legendary moment that, like, that's how legends are born, right? Like, Jim Halsey ended up waiting for his competitor to go make a change to the car and get it ready to race and come back up there, and unfortunately ended up losing, but still took it like a champ, was down there congratulating him, doing all the right things, saying all the right things. And like, that's a perfect picture of drag racing.
Alex,
this is
that
the
happened
kind of people.
a couple races ago, didn't you, Alex?
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Justin Swanstrom, and which turned out the opposite. Alex got the win on that one, right?
Yeah, same thing. Smoked a transmission. They only give us like 30 minutes to go between rounds, which is crazy. Didn't, I told them, I'm not going to ask you guys to wait, but if there was an extra 5 minutes hanging around, we would certainly take it. And it took about 20 extra minutes, and they did wait on us, and same thing. We ended up winning.
But I mean, to me, like, that is what makes our sport so special. Like, that's the type of story that needs to be told.
It was the story of the weekend. It definitely made it for everybody. Everybody that was watching, that's what they wanted to see. And same for Justin. Had he not waited, he may have lost some fans over it. Me personally, I probably would have taken the loss of fans. I probably would have started the car and taken the win. That's a tough position to be in, especially when, same thing, 30 grand is on the line. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what it does guarantee is that the fans are on the edge of their seats waiting for the result.
I will say the World Series of Pro Mod, me and Crystal were down there at the finish line on the VIP, on the box down there, on the stand. And it was probably the most nerve-wracking 30 minutes waiting for a final, because we knew what was happening, because we'd been to the starting. We knew that they had trouble, and Halsey's letting them put a starter on the car, which is unheard of for $100 grand on the line. And then so we go down there to watch the final. everybody was just, it was like electric. It was electric. It was awesome.
You're giving me chills. I got goosebumps.
We need that though. We need something like that.
Those are the moments, man. Those are the moments. And I hope, that there were some relatively new drag racing fans that got exposed to our sport, perhaps maybe for the first time at World Series of Pro Mod, and they got to see that. They got to see all the things that you expect from a drag race, close competition, super fast cars, all that stuff, loud noises, crazy smells. But they also got to see our sport at its absolute finest. That these are true sportsmen and women that hold themselves to a high standard by and large, and are going to do the right thing and put on a show for the fans. And because he could have very easily idled that thing down through there and drove it back to the winner's circle. But he knew, and we all knew, that our fans deserved better than that. And by God, they got better than that. So guys, thank you so much for being on here. Scott, you better get back on the road. Alex, I did see you managed to get back to the studio. So I guess,
yes,
I guess that's good news.
Yeah.
So anyways, but thank you guys. Seriously, you're always so gracious with your time. We're huge fans of yours, and we will forever be. Be safe this weekend. Best of luck, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Thanks,
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
later.
Oh my goodness. That was a great conversation. I love having these like kind of deep conversations, Mike. I don't know about you, but it's like, I feel like this is when we're doing the Lord's work. Like these conversations got to be had. Like, and I think it's important that they're had in like a public forum where, we're not right about everything. Hell, maybe we're wrong about everything. I don't know, but I do think that
Speak for yourself.
Somebody's got to be driving these conversations. And I think we need to be talking about this stuff, right? Because there's a whole lot more going on in our sport. Like we could have spent the last 2 hours going through round results and reaction times and everything else. But I feel like we make an effort to dive into these kind of tough subjects and dive into these things that are hard to talk about and, tell stories that maybe otherwise wouldn't get told. Historically in drag racing, one of the things I think I'm most proud of with Drag Illustrated is that you used to have to win every race or wreck real bad to get any sort of ink or promotion in this industry. And one is extremely hard to do, and the other is something that you try to avoid, right? And I'm glad that there is a platform in drag racing that exists to promote stars and build personalities and share people's, personalities with people and let people get to know them and hear them speak off the cuff, maybe while they're driving down the road, right? I can't believe.
Did you see Alex had he has a camera set up and then a screen so you can see the tree around the blower. Did you see that in his car? I meant to ask him about it. I forgot, but yeah.
I think at one of the races he had an iPad in there.
He does. Yeah.
And
been muted though. Wait, did you unmute me? There we go. I've been muted.
Ooh,
yeah. It has a camera and then an iPad set here so you can see the tree around it. I thought, holy shit, that's funny.
Yeah, I think that was a joke, but it was.
I know it was funny though.
That'd be funny as hell if he's actually using that. Innovative.
Delayed,
but those guys,
well, I guess in no prep though, with the
I would roll in.
You could kind of do it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. My luck, I would roll in, light the top bulb, and it would install an update.
Oh yeah. There's no way.
There's
no way that's working. But it's funny. But that's Alex, man, and that's two guys there that lean into that kind of stuff, and you can have that conversation about these match races and doing stuff outside the box. If I had two guys that like I needed to put something together that's outside the box, and two guys that are just going to be, I don't even have to tell them what it is. They're going to do it. It's those two guys right there. And we need more of that. We need more guys that are willing to embrace outside ideas, new things. There's a reason why PBR is involved with Scott, and he's sort of learning from that, bringing that to drag racing. I love what he said about how the announcers never say anything negative about the bull rider. Even like his first time, they're like, this is this dude's, this dude's about to go on a winning streak. It's not like this is his first time. Look out, everybody off the starting line. Can you imagine if that was the norm in drag racing announcing?
Oh, I really feel strongly that it's not, it needs to be like almost a rule. I'll tell you, I don't know if I've talked about this before, so forgive me if I had, but I love pro wrestling. I don't like follow it, like the storylines, but I love the theater that it is and the effort that they put into developing storylines and creating these narratives. Yeah, it's super real. But I collect Vince McMahon's notes. So if you didn't know this, that there's a pretty solid market for photographed copies of Vince McMahon's production notes for WWE or previously WWF events. And I buy them on eBay all the time. And you'll go through these 30-page.
Wes finds the most creative ways to waste money, man. That's hilarious.
It's but I'm telling you, man, I hold them, like, we're in the process of moving right now, and like I've got them under lock and key. Like I've got Vince McMahon's
Alicia
personal
budget setting.
They're not expensive, terribly, but if you go through Vince McMahon's notes from like one of the a SummerSlam event or one of the major pay-per-views, WrestleMania, right? You will notice that he says in there like explicit instructions to the talent on how things are to be. You know, this event is never supposed to be referred to as the granddaddy of them all. I mean, that's a rule for the WWE with WrestleMania, that it is never to be referred to the granddaddy of them all, because Vince believes it dates the event, makes it feel old. I think like little things about how the Undertaker is supposed to be referenced. You have to talk about him in this way. You have to refrain from calling him Taker. Make sure you call him the Undertaker. Like all these notes and nuances that are provided to the on-air talent.
More oil in the hair.
I mean, I think that stuff's really important and it's slept on, but like that is an extra step that Vince took to make sure the end result was what he wanted. Right. And that they were serving their goals in their mission of building these superstars, because that whole model is built on the back of superstars, these big, larger than life personalities that people fall in love with or love to hate. And he has very carefully dissected, like, here's the things that have to be said. I mean, he refuses to have 80s music played at his events. Don't want any classic rock. Don't want any country. Don't want any old music.
I agree with him.
No sing-alongs, because he wants it to be a modern production. We need to be playing the music that is being heard on radio stations right now. And I just think that those are the little extra steps and that little bit of attention to detail that takes you from, a bunch of dudes dancing essentially in a ring to WWE. That's why
it would have really hit the stride
and some don't.
I mean, they lost all those characters. I haven't kept up with it, and I'm sure there's some good ones now. And you see some of them, like if you just casually follow it. But like when they had Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, all these great characters, that's
Triple
you
H.
couldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
Everyone was into it. You could not avoid it. And when those characters have gone, I obviously
Look where
still
those
a very
characters have
successful
gone.
business.
I mean, look where those characters have gone though.
To movies and to other things in a lot of ways. But I'm saying
they made a career on the heels of that.
Well, I'm just saying that the peak of the success of that
Yeah.
industry, in my opinion, was the stars. UFC, same way. That's where we go back to the Conor McGregor deal. That's what drove that, continues to drive it higher until they find, I think it's more organic that way. You have to actually be legit, be a fighter. You can't just be built as a character in that deal. But when they find that person that has the skills and the character,
gift of gab and
the gift of gab that everyone can latch onto, and all those stars that they had as they were building that industry, you have to have that. There's just it's not negotiable.
Is he still in wrestling? Yeah. I mean, like he started out on The Real World on MTV, right? I mean, he went to Columbia College, I believe, MU. I'm pretty sure. I always thought that. So
I didn't know you know his whole bio. That's awesome.
No, but I'm just saying that he started out on a reality show and then ended up at the WWE, and now
got his own reality show.
He had his own reality show at one time. He's funnier than hell.
Oh, he is, man. But I mean, don't you think that makes sense? I mean, can you imagine like the staff in the tower at a drag race being handed a packet full of all the things that they're allowed to say and not allowed to say and the points that they need to make? I mean, we do it at World Series. You know what I mean? Like I remember
those rodeo announcers. Those rodeo announcers are good. I mean, I'm not saying that drag racing announcers aren't, but they are. The $7 million bull rider. I mean, they're just working that crowd, and they're working those cowboys to the presentation of those cowboys at a PBR event is fucking spectacular. I mean,
it's
so
important.
Pyros and I mean, they make them look like stars. They are.
And I
stars,
think that the thing is that those people that are holding the mic are like, they are okay with being fanboys or fangirls of the talent. And I think that there's like this weird identity crisis where everybody's like fighting so hard to be in the club or be cool or whatever, be in the know on the inside looking around versus just like accepting their role of like, hey, we're here to propel them. Like our role here. And I had that conversation, like for anybody that's been a part, I think Courtney Enders was in the comments a second ago. Courtney knows, like when Flow Racing shows up to World Series of Pro Mod, I hand them a packet. And that packet has, here's the way I want the event referred to. Here's how we talk about this guy. Here's how we talk about this gal. I give it to everybody. I remember Don O'Neill came up and he was wanting to talk. He said, hey, I heard you wanted to meet with me. And I handed him a packet and I said, you need to get familiar with this. And he's like, what's this? And he had never seen one before in his life. And it was a production guide. And I said, hey, here's all the do's and don'ts, the things to say, the things not to say, how to speak about this event, how to speak about our talent, because someone's got to set that standard. You know, and I think that it's just not been, I've had conversations where there's been in certain instances in drag racing, a failure to evolve.
Be a swan.
And that's also that's in the hand guide, the handbook.
Oh, I know.
That's in the World Series of Pro Mod handbook.
I skimmed through I skimmed through that one.
Yeah. So, hey man, maybe I'm crazy,
no,
but
I
just care a lot. I just care a lot.
We all know you're crazy.
Yeah. I just care a lot. And
it has to be a good kind of crazy.
Yeah, man. It's all
right.
Hey,
before we wrap up, I want to say, new issue of Drag Illustrated launching tonight online.
Ooh.
DI 189 Women of Power. A big issue for us. We always love doing this issue. Always one of the most popular. Maddie Gordon, top alcohol rookie sensation, multi-generation racing family. We had the pleasure of doing a story on them. Some great photography from our buddy Rick Belden. So check it out tonight. Going
Drag
online.
Illustrated director of photography, Rick Belden.
Yep. Digital.dragillustrated.com or just go to dragillustrated.com. Most of you probably subscribe to it digitally. You'll get an email in your inbox. And if you subscribe to the print edition, probably in the next week to 10 days, you'll have it in your mailbox. But we don't talk enough about the new issues. And you know, they're dropping.
Wasn't Lizzie the first Women of Power?
No, actually it was Alexis DeJoria. Okay. I think that was.
I know that one was so popular. It's on my wall. Yeah.
Yep.
That you can't hardly find an issue of that. Like,
dude, we
did not print enough copies.
We
of that.
did not print enough of those.
That was issue 84.
Yeah, DI 72. I think was Alexis. She was the first one. I think Lizzie was the second. We've been doing it since then.
It's kind of crazy. I actually thought that a great video series for the channel would be for our YouTube channel would be. You know, obviously JT, you could be included as well, but Mike, how much fun would it be to go back and like literally just tell all the stories from today? We're going to do issue 55. And this is the month I got sued by Time Incorporated for having a similar logo. And this is the month that Mike's dad, you know, crashed into the wall in Houston. And we were trying to upload, or the time we were trying to upload the magazine from your dad's motorhome in Rockingham with your Verizon hotspot, you know, and tell all those insane stories.
3G, baby.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember trying to get the entire magazine uploaded on your hotspot in Rockingham?
I think it was Norwalk, which is even worse.
Oh, it was Norwalk, which is even worse.
Was Norwalk. There may still be no cell towers in Norwalk.
Yeah,
we've been through it, man. It used to be a battle to get that thing done, but with technology and our staff that we have now, our great team, we were able to consistently fire these things out now, and maybe that's why we failed to talk about it as much. But I think we should always let everyone know we've got a new issue coming out and talk about it. Great cover on this issue.
Oh,
yeah. So
got some color on it. Mike made a good. It's like, hey, Wes, like, what do you think about like the covers are getting awfully white or dark gray? We need to get away from that. And that red, it's a super regal cover. I think it's one of my favorites. I love when we have high level portrait photography. Like for me,
but it's usually at the track. And the last few issues have been nighttime celebratory winner circle shots. And so there's a lot of black, there's a lot of nighttime, and there's always just a lot of, gray, white, black, and red. So every time we get a chance, we break away from that.
I like to do it, man. And I love providing that experience. Like for me, I want anytime somebody's featured in Drag Illustrated or especially featured on the cover of Drag Illustrated, I want it to be something that they never forget, right? Like I want them to remember, well, I had to go to Rick Belden's photo studio and I spent 3 hours getting my photo taken there, did hair and makeup or whatever. And then I love that. I think that that's an important part of the significance of what we do is creating memories for people. I want them to remember that and cherish that moment and cherish that experience. And I recognize how few and far between wins are in the sport of drag racing for seemingly everyone except for Gage Herrera. And, you know, it's important that those things are a big deal when they happen, man. And it's, I'm very proud of it. Dude, one other thing.
Want me to show the cover here?
Yeah, I was going to say, cue that bad boy up.
Well, here's the brand new.
Look at there. That does
Ooh,
look good. That looks really good.
Oh, it's a good looking cover. Good looking cover. I like the Women of Power logo.
Yep.
I like that it's over Mike's face. This is great.
It's perfect.
Oh, yeah. Let's just
continue
continue
do
the
this
more often.
It's a lot better look.
Yeah, we'll just do this for the whole show.
They enjoy looking at Maddie a lot more than me.
And we've got to, I would be remiss if we didn't mention the brand new Racers Club drop, the brand new Racers Club golf hat. It's got the sick rope, got the embroidery on the side there, the old
Maybe
Racers
I can get
Club
one of these.
crest. You know, this thing turned out sick. Couldn't be happier with it. My wife, have you guys seen, you guys probably haven't even seen these yet, but just dropped these as well for the ladies. We had to deliver something for the girls.
Oh, those are for the ladies.
I was gonna wear that on the show
looking
next
at me
week.
weird at the supermarket last night. Jeez.
Racers Club Racerback tank top, super sick. These are like super soft material. We tried like a gazillion different tank tops until we found the one that we liked. But anyways, super awesome new gear. The brand new Racers Club drop. You can check out racers.club and go snag yourself some, man. Shout out to Josh, Kayla, Brian, the whole gang behind the scenes at Racers Club for keeping this deal rock and rolling. I'm excited to see this brand's starting to explode, and I can't wait to see what happens next, man. Hey, thank you guys for joining me. South Georgia Motorsports. I don't know if that's Raul. Do you have a 50 under 50 yet? Can you imagine how much of a nightmare doing a 50 under 50 would be? We'd have 4 million submissions. The nominations, it might be worth it just for the data haul, because you get 10,000 people to submit themselves.
That is the number one. That's the number one joke. 50 under 50 or 60 under 60, 70 under 70.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good sign or bad. But hey, guys, thank you so much. Huge shout out to our show sponsors, Racers Club, Stroud Safety, Redline Synthetic Oils, FlowRacing.com. Thank you guys all for your continued support of the show. And guys, we'll see you next Wednesday right here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel. Appreciate you.
Later.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.